Hello chess fans, this is Rick from Chess to Impress with Game 10 of the 2018 World Championship match between World Champion Magnus Carlsen and his challenger Fabiano Caruana. And what a game it was! Let's get into it. It was played on Thursday the 22nd of November 2018. White Caruana, black Carlsen. Caruana played e4 in his first 4 games with white, and he did also do this in game 10. c5 for the 5th time we see a Sicilian. Knight f3, knight c6, and we saw bishop b5 in the first 3 white games from Caruana, the Rossolimo variation. But in game 8 and now also in game 10 he plays d4. We get an open Sicilian. Would we see the Sveshnikov again? We would find out very soon. After knight c3, Carlsen indeed didn't hesitate and played e5, the Sveshnikov, and we were in for another sharp game. Knight db5, d6, and here bishop g5 is the main move, but knight d5 was played by Caruana as he did in game 8. Knight takes, e takes, knight back to b8, and a4. That was also seen in game 8. In his opening, white plays on the queen side, pushing his pawns, and black does the same on the king side, where he has the majority of pawns. c4 is the main move, but a4 was Caruana's choice. Bishop e7, bishop e2, both players castled. Knight d7 bringing that knight back into the game, and here bishop d2 was played 2 games ago in game 8. And Garry Kasparov commented in one of the broadcasts. He said, instinctively this move is more convincing than b4, which was the move played by Caruana. He had prepared b4 for this game. It was never played before. There's no game in the database of over 7 million games with this move. As Grandmaster Saron explained, normally you don't play b4 when black can still play a5, because then this pawn will get swapped, and that will give this knight the nice square on c5, where it cannot be challenged by a pawn. Let's see what happened. Carlsen decided to play a6 first, very instructive. He could have played a5 straight away, but he first kicks the knight away. Knight a3 and then a5. It's not often that it's good to play the pawn from its initial square 1 square up, and then on the next move another square up, like you have forgotten that the pawn can move 2 squares on the first move. And again, this is only playable by beginners and very, very strong players. Caruana took, and now that square is a nice square for black's knight in many variations. Carlsen took back, knight c4, attacking that rook, and the rook dropped back to a8. Bishop e3, and now knight c5 is not good with the bishop on e3, as the bishop will chop off the knight. D takes c5 and d6, and white gets a very strong pass pawn on d6. This is terrible for black. So you cannot play knight c5 with the bishop on e3. Carlsen knows he has to play on the king side, that's where his majority is, and he pushes f5. a5, gaining control of the nice square on b6, similar to what happened in game 8. And now f4 from the world champion. Anish Giri called this very risky, especially as Carlsen had not prepared this move in his preparation, which is clear from the time he used. And Yasser once said, this move is just bad. Let's see what happens. Caruana played bishop b6. Logical move, hitting the queen, and the queen went to e8 on its way to the king side. A number of moves was looked at in the different broadcasts that I followed. Rook e1 was one of them. It's an idea of the engine, not being worried about black's play on the king side. Queen c6 and bishop c7, and the black queen is tied to the defense of the d6 pawn. And also the knight on d7 cannot move, because then there will be the white knight coming to b6. Another idea is bishop h5 to induce g6 and deny the queen coming to that square to slow down black's attack on the king side. The bishop can then go back to g4 or to f3, and bishop c7 may be coming, and bishop e6 may be coming, and no attack for black, said Yasser. So he liked bishop h5 in this position. The third option is bishop c7 straight away, attacking this pawn with 2 pieces, and Saron says, let's just hit the guy. Let's play very direct. But Caruana decided on the fourth option. He played Rook a3, a typical move in this system with defense in mind over the third rank and also attack in mind. The rook can come to c3 and may play an important role there in the queenside attack. Carlsen played Queen g6. Garry Kasparov said, we have a very sharp position and both players will have to make very tough choices. Black has an idea of e5, e4 now. And Judith Polgar said she did not like White's position. White is not making a lot of progress on the queen side, while Black is playing on the king side. Bishop c7 from Caruana and e4. Kasparov said Carlsen has to play very attacking chess. It's not easy to develop Black's initiative, and it's not Carlsen's style and chess philosophy to play this way. He likes the more slow approach. Judith Polgar thought this looked quite scary for White. King h1. Garry Kasparov said he would have played this move instantly to take the king out of the line of Black's queen, and also it stops f4, f3, which is a threat in the position. A nice variation was shown, which is good for Black. Instead of king h1 to play bishop h5, but then queen g5, and White can win a pawn on d6, but bishop takes d6, knight takes d6, knight f6, bishop back to e2, and then f3, and Black wins in all variations. This was a variation that was shown on the St. Louis Chess Club broadcast. But king h1 was played by Caruana, the right move. And now look at this move from Carlsen, b7, b5, a pawn sacrifice from the world champion. Vishwanathan Anand said, practically it's easier to play for Black, but White will find resources. It could be that White is able to stop Black's attack, and then Black has a problem on the queen side. It's very dangerous for White to accept the pawn sacrifice by taking en passant on b6. Rook takes, knight takes, f3, g takes, e takes, bishop takes, and knight e5 was a variation that Grandmaster Polgar showed. White has two pieces looking on from afar, and the general consensus here was that this is very good for Black. Caruana agreed he did not like the variations after winning the pawn. He played knight b6 instead. Carlsen took, bishop takes back. Black is happy to have swapped the knight on d7 with the knight on c4, and here b4 was expected with very complicated variations, but Carlsen, after some thought, and he was getting low on time, played queen g5. Vishwanathan Anand felt that this was too slow. Alexander Grishuk said Magnus is going for the kill. The idea is rook to f6 to h6, queen to h4, and checkmate. Of course, it's not that easy, but it's clear that Black wants to checkmate the White king. And it is again a pawn sacrifice. White can take on b5, and everybody was analyzing this move. It looked like White is okay after this move, but Caruana came up with g3. Alexander Grishuk grabbed his head and said, "Oh my God." Judith Polgar said, "We are speechless." Grandmaster David Howell said that as a child he was taught not to make pawn moves on the side where he was being attacked. Caruana violated this rule. The engine thinks it's fine that g3 is a good move. Caruana played the move after 18 minutes of thought, and he said in the press conference after the game that immediately after playing it, he wished he had played f3 instead. And about bishop takes b5, he said, that looks way too greedy. I was not going to play bishop takes b5. After g3, Carlsen played b4, attacking the rook. Rook b3. David Howell said, Caruana is so calm and composed. I would have been desperate to get my rook over to the king side, which Caruana could have done with g takes f4, hitting the queen, queen takes, and then rook g3, bringing the rook into the defense. That is also a playable option for White. But Caruana played rook b3. Bishop h3 from Carlsen. f3 was given as a possible better option by Grandmaster Howell. Further analysis will have to show if this move was more accurate than bishop h3. It's very complicated. After bishop h3 attacking the rook, Caruana stepped aside with a threat of g takes f4, winning for White. Please note that the rook is then also attacking that bishop on h3. Carlsen played f3, bishop dropped back, those bishops were swapped, and Carlsen took on d5, Caruana took on b4, queen e6, rook b5, and bishop d8. Grandmaster Howell explained this is really giving up on the attack and going into an endgame. Rook fc8 is more ambitious, keeping the attack going. After bishop d8, Caruana played queen e1. The bishops were swapped, rook ab8, queen e3, queen c4, hitting this pawn, rook b2, defending the pawn, rook b7, rook d1, and look at this move. Queen e2, both players were under time pressure. This was move 35, they only had a few minutes left to reach move 40, and Carlsen drops in this amazing move. It is a trap, white has to be careful, black is threatening checkmate, this rook is hanging. Taking the queen is not good, because f takes e2, rook e1, and then rook takes f2 as possible, king g1, rook bf7, and if you now push b7, then black plays rook f1 check, and this is better for black. After queen e2, you can also not win black's queen. It looks for a second that you can. Queen b3 check, king h8, and then c4. Beautiful move. Protecting the rook, attacking the queen, and black's queen has no squares. Does white win? No, he doesn't, because black has this amazing move. Rook takes b6. And black is winning. You cannot take that rook, because this is checkmate, and also you cannot take the queen, because f takes e2, the queen is hanging, the rook is hanging with promotion. Black wins here. So after queen e2, a wonderful move from Carlsen. Caruana, under time pressure, had to calculate everything, but he was up to the task. He found the right move, which is rook e1. The queens were swapped, and d5. h4, making air for the king, no more back rank checkmates. Rook c8, rook a3, king f7, bringing the king closer, and white has to do the same. King e6 and g4, enabling the king to get into the game this way. Rook c6, Grandmaster Howell explained that black is on the right side of the draw here. White has to wait with his rooks to see what black will do, but it will be hard for Carlsen to press in this endgame. Howell said in a blitz game he would enter white's position with his king and hope he would not get checkmated, and we'll see something similar in this game. For the moment the b pawn is hanging, so either rook b3 or rook a6 has to be played. Caruana chose rook a6, king e5, further activating the king, king g3 and h6, threatening g5 to box in white's king. Caruana played h5 to avoid that happening, and there comes Carlsen's king, king d4. But this is too ambitious from Carlsen, and Caruana played rook b5, and he said in the interview after the game that he thought that Carlsen had missed this move, and he had indeed, as Carlsen admitted. Suddenly the tables have turned, and it's black who has to scramble for a draw here. Carlsen thought for 11 minutes, which left him only 12 minutes till move 60, and we're only on move 45. And they came up with rook d6. We are taught not to make passive rook moves, but Carlsen felt this was needed to save this position. Rook a4 check, king e5. Carlsen recognizes he has misplayed the position and has the strength to switch back to defense and take the king move back. Black has wasted 2 moves with the king and also played the passive rook d6. The tables have turned. Rook ab4, the strongest move found by Caruana, based on the idea of pushing c4 now. King e6, Carlsen is going to bail out to a rook endgame with 3 pawns against 2 on the king side, because white is going to win a pawn here. Caruana pushed c4 as planned, d takes, rook takes. Now black can take on b6, but rook takes e4 check, and be careful, you can still lose this game. King f6 loses on the spot because of this move, and this is checkmate. Carlsen was not going to fall for that. He played king f7, rook f5 check, rook f6, a pair of rooks was swapped, and now Caruana took on f3, has won a pawn. But 3 against 2 on one side of the board at Grandmaster level, that is a simple draw. Carlsen played King f7 and Caruana played King g3, offered a draw and Carlsen accepted it. So after 54 moves this game had ended in a draw, but it was a fantastic game of chess. This is the handshake after the game and the confirmation that we have had 10 draws, the score is 5-all, only 2 more games of classical time control to go. If the score will be 6-all after 12 games, then we go to a tiebreak with shorter time controls. Magnus Carlsen said after the game, b4 was a new move to me. I thought I had checked everything, but apparently not. I was not so unhappy to see b4, as I felt it would become a complicated game. Then I decided to go crazy a bit. It was too complicated and there was too much at stake. It was very close to mate, but if I don't mate him, I'm losing. I was trying to find some middle ground, but my time was running out and I was so nervous, and I could not make it happen. It ended up being nothing. I didn't think I was winning in the rook endgame. Immediately after I played King d4, I saw rook b5 and had to struggle for a draw. Fortunately, I was able to do that. I think he could have made it even more difficult for me. Caruana said it was very complicated. At some point I had a big advantage. Maybe g3 was a mistake. Maybe I played too safely at some point. I was not scared about black's attack. I believed in my position. When I played g3 I really did not want to take on b5. It feels kind of greedy and black has a very strong attack. In the rook endgame I thought I was worse, but he must have missed rook b5, after which his king is misplaced. I could have played the 3 against 2 rook endgame, but it is a dead draw. Friday the 23rd of November will be a rest day and game 11 will be played on Saturday the 24th of November. I will be here after the game to tell you what happened. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe to the Chess to Impress channel and please leave a comment. If you liked the video, it would be great if you could share it on social media by clicking the share button on YouTube. This is Rick for Chess to Impress. See you for game 11. Thank you for watching.